This week, we go back to 1979 to look at what happens when Disney tries to cash in on the Star Wars craze. However, instead of the next big space blockbuster, what we got was something creepy and weird, a major motion picture called The Black Hole. This is Dad Made Me Watch It. Hello, everyone. This is Brian. Welcome to our very first episode of Dad Made Me Watch It, the podcast where I subject my children to some of the forgotten cinematic relics of my youth. With me is Colin.
Hello, everyone.
Caitlin.
Sup?
And Emma.
Heyo.
So this week we shared the cinematic majesty that was The Black Hole. What were your guys' first thoughts of this movie?
I think right after I watched it, I kind of wanted to pull my eyes out. It was that bad, Dad.
Okay.
It hurt me physically and mentally. I don't think I'm ever going to come back from that. I've changed, man. I've changed.
Wow. Okay. Thanks, Em.
You know, there are some movies in my life that I really wish I could just get back. That one, I didn't want it back. I just wanted to die.
Okay. So we got two thumbs down, I guess.
That's
Okay.
infinite thumbs
Total
down.
4 thumbs down. My knee-jerk reaction was to hate this movie, but the more I thought about it, it wasn't too bad. There were definitely some things that were wrong, but
That's a lie. There are many things
it
that
wasn't
were wrong with that movie.
it wasn't a complete dumpster fire.
Do you remember that line?
I remember them all.
The Vincent's a name, shooting's my game.
Try me.
Yeah.
Gosh.
Okay. All right, so some not so enthusiastic reviews here. We got your initial takes then. Let's dive into it. First, a quick note to whoever may be listening to this. We're going to dive into some major plot points here, so spoiler alert, just in case there's anyone listening to this who may want to discover this 40-year-old film without knowing anything about it.
You don't.
Okay. So, The Black Hole stars Robert Forster as Captain Dan Holland, Anthony Perkins, you know him from Psycho, as Dr. Alex Durant, Yvette Minimew as Dr. Kate McRae. I'm sure I messed that one up. Joseph Bottoms as Lieutenant Charlie Pizer. We had Ernest Borgnine as Harry Booth. And, of course, Maximilian Schell as Dr. Hans Reinhardt. There were a couple of uncredited roles in this movie. We had Roddy McDowall as the voice of the robot Vincent.
God help us.
And because Disney apparently felt that not all robots should sound like English butlers, we had Slim Pickens as the voice of Old Bob.
Oh my gosh, I love that
You know,
character.
when I wrote down something about Bob, I really just wrote down his name as Southern Vincent.
I guess that's
He-
very appropriate.
He's Kentucky Fried Vincent. That's what he is.
Kentucky Fried Vincent.
That poor guy.
The movie was directed by Gary Nelson and scored by John Barry. I know we all love that score.
It's a store brand John Williams, because, you know, you got the John part, but then they
Something
just sort
else
of messed
entirely.
it up there.
Well, John Barry did do scores for many of the James Bond films, so that's kind of where some of that came in. The Black Hole opened on December 21st, 1979. It grossed close to $36 million during its initial theatrical run. Pretty impressive at the time, but not a Star Wars by any stretch. A couple of interesting notes. It was the first Disney movie released with a PG rating. Everything else before that
They
was
had to
rated
get
G.
that. They had to get that one damn in.
There was a hell too, I think.
Oh, damn.
Damn, and yes.
They also
Plus
killed
a
like a
few
bunch
other-
of people, and they went into like cults and all that. So I mean,
And they went into...
they had hell too.
Yeah.
That's right.
They did have hell.
We will talk about that ending. That's for sure.
Ha-
It was. It cost $20 million to make, and it was the most expensive thing Disney had ever produced at the time. Obviously, in more recent times, much different story, but at the time, that was the most expensive thing Disney had ever put out the door. It was released under the banner of Buena Vista Pictures instead of Disney, and that eventually became Touchstone. Reviews at the time were mixed, to say best. Roger Ebert wrote that it takes us all the way to the rim of space, only to bog us down in a talky melodrama whipped up out of mad scientists and haunted houses.
That's fair.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
I wouldn't say haunted houses. That'd be more. It's like a Twilight Zone episode, but it's one of the crappy ones. You know, like they rebooted Twilight Zone. Like my teacher, he'll show us the originals, but he's like, I'm not showing you any of the newer stuff because it's all crap. So I feel like it would be that.
All right. Ian Nathan had a differing view. He said it was a pretty craven attempt by Disney to cash in on Star Wars' blockbusting success, but this lightweight and well-written sci-fi adventure movie is well pitched at the very young.
Well written.
Wait.
Well written?
No.
Well written. That man
Hey.
has no pan stuff. They've all combusted.
Don't
You know those
sh-
people who like write the ratings, like in some.
Who bought him out? I want to know.
I would be more. Actually, my
Undercover
bigger bone to
boss.
pick with that one would be that it's aimed at the very young. I didn't think this was really good for little kids.
My
I
skin
can't wrap
was
my mind
crawling.
around it.
Okay.
I didn't know what was even happening for majority of the movie.
Perhaps Jay Scott's take would be a little bit more in line with what you guys are thinking. He said the black hole isn't mediocre or even bad, it's dreadful. It looks, sounds, and feels like a careless, cynically manufactured B-movie. Uncle Walt must be spinning in his cryogenic vault.
Okay, what he said B movie. What does that mean? Because when he says B movie, I think of the best movie there. You know, like the movie from like the early 2000s with the animated bees.
No,
Right?
B-movies,
Yeah.
oh, we got to get into that, I guess. A B-movie is basically, it's a movie that they know is not going to win any awards. It's bad, it's poorly written, it's poorly acted.
Oh, so Michael Bay's whole career? Is that where the B comes from?
Maybe, yeah,
Okay.
that's kind of in line with it.
Okay.
Usually the budgets are a little lower, though. We're talking Ed Wood type stuff here, which you guys probably wouldn't know. That's way before your time. It's a movie that's fondly remembered and enjoyed by certain people, even though it was pretty much trash. That's what a B movie is.
Trash.
So whether or not this fits that category, I'm not sure. But the last note I'll make here is that physicist Neil deGrasse Tyson called it the least scientifically accurate movie of all time. So there you go. From that perspective there.
You know, I don't entirely agree with that because the first 3 minutes of the movie is just a black screen, and if you're thinking about a black hole, it's going to be dark in there. So that is scientifically accurate. The rest of the movie,
I don't-
yeah, that's not accurate at all.
I don't think hell resides in a black hole, though. I don't think that when you die and if you've been real bad, you get thrown up into the cosmos and then.
No, I'm saying, yeah, that's all BS. But I'm saying the first 3 minutes of the movie where it's just darkness, that's a black hole. That's scientifically somewhat accurate
So
from
you're
what we
saying the
can
the
theorize.
first 3 minutes of the movie is pretty much the only scientific thing in the movie.
There are 3 minutes in the entire movie that are grounded in science.
Well,
yes. I
there's
think that's what
that,
she's saying.
and then it's like if you get shot, you die.
Okay.
That's scientifically accurate.
I suppose. Well, depends on where you get shot.
Depends on the laser.
Point out that the first 3 minutes that everybody's talking about here is when it was playing the overture over a black screen. That was not the way the movie was originally released. That was added on as a special feature, which happens to be the edition that we watched, where it had
So
John
Oh.
Barry's score go
people-
through an entire 3 minutes before we actually saw any credits.
People went through the whole movie just watching it instead of just thinking about that good black screen. Like
That good black
that was the
screen.
best part, Dad.
I bet you they would have gotten better ratings if they released it with the black screen at the beginning.
Yeah.
That was just void of anything.
Yeah, because
Well,
then
we
it'd be
watched it. I had to
scientifically
stop it
accurate.
because I wasn't sure if the video was coming through correctly and make sure that actually there was something there. So we thought it was broken or something.
It lets you hold out a hope for another 3 minutes before the movie starts.
I suppose so. Now, I mean, despite all of this movie was nominated for 2 Academy Awards.
In what?
What?
It was Best Cinematography. It lost out to Apocalypse Now, and then it was nominated for Best Visual Effects.
When it lost to Alien.
bested by a little Ridley Scott film called Alien.
A little bit.
Film.
Only one of the
I don't know if anybody. Well, I mean,
most genre-defining horror movies.
yeah. One thing that may be worth noting is that Star Trek: The Motion Picture also came out that year, 2 weeks before this was released, and The Black Hole made nearly as much money as that did, despite not having any sort of legacy or characters that anybody was familiar with.
I feel that if Black Hole came out before Star Wars, it would have done way better. I think that was the big thing, was that it tried to be Star Wars and it did it so poorly that it really didn't do well.
The thing is you can't top Star Wars. There's no way.
All right, so let's dive into the specifics of what happens in this movie. So
Nothing good.
let
That's the
start-
entirety of the plot summary
start
we
at
have
the
written
very
down.
All right, so let's go back to the actual movie after the 3 minutes of black screen and John Barry's score. What basically we start off with is we see this neat little graphic, which, by the way, that grid lines of that black hole we first saw at the very beginning where it was hovering over, that cost $50,000 to make at that
Why?
time.
There was no purpose in it.
Reminded me of Tron. I don't know why. It just did.
Yeah, kind
It's
of.
like that thing in the mall where you put the pennies in and they go around and around and around. That's what I thought of.
So we started with we meet the crew of the Palomino, right?
Yes,
So we get
those
to-
people.
Yeah.
Very memorable.
John Wilkes Booth.
Yes, he was there.
There are a couple. Yeah.
He
Harry
was
Booth.
fleeing after the Lincoln assassination.
And he still died.
So we had it was Captain Dan and Lieutenant Charlie, the two guys. I guess they were astronaut and military types. Then we had Dr. McRae, right?
Who has
Yeah, that was
she
him.
was the
or her.
and
Sorry.
then,
the only girl in the movie.
of course,
And
Yeah.
the only
Token
one that
female.
could talk to Vincent, I think.
right. And then there was what's his name? It was Harry Booth,
John Wilkes Booth, yes.
who was a reporter, which again I'm not quite sure what he was doing there, especially since we find out he was a print reporter. So you figured at least if they're going to stick a reporter on the spaceship, he would at least be a television reporter at that time. But I guess that's not the case. And then we had Dr. Durant,
No relation to
Right.
Kevin.
exactly by Anthony Perkins. There we meet those guys.
And
Then
Vincent.
who do we meet? Vincent.
Yeah.
Let's talk about Vincent a minute. What do we think of Vincent?
In my notes, I wrote, you know that yellow robot from Yo Gabba Gabba? The show that we used to watch as kids, where the guy in the orange jumpsuit would, like, have the puppets and he'd play with the puppets. And they weren't puppets, they were little dolls.
I seem to recall Yo Gabba Gabba.
It looks like the yellow robot.
He was just a bad looking model. Like, that was like the big thing I took away from that. He looked like straight up garbage. Like, there was like very little detail, and
He spoke
he
in,
looked cheaply made, which from Disney is astounding. And then I don't like him speaking in tongues and rhymes. That was kind of weird.
he spoke in try-hard inspirational riddles.
He
was
did.
Like all fortune cookie.
He was a bad Yoda.
What I thought was weird is that first off, he looked like an overbaked cupcake. Like it was bad. And
I
then
don't know if I go with overbaked cup. Maybe.
and then also I feel like in the beginning you were supposed to take him as it was like they wanted him to seem all serious and everything, but from his appearance, and especially if it was by Disney, it's just really bad
Well,
to think about.
Let me ask you this. I mean, doesn't he kind of fit the whole Disney motif with the way his eyes were and stuff like that? Didn't he kind of look like a cartoon character?
Yo Gabba Gabba was Nickelodeon, so it says.
That says what that says.
I think they were planning on selling Vincent toys, and then this movie was a bomb, and they were like, can't
Maybe
do
we
that.
shouldn't.
They did have an action figure line.
Oh no.
Do you imagine? I think the Harry Booth action figure didn't get a lot of sales, as far as I'm concerned. I
I
think that was
wanna-
kind of reserved for collectors that wanted the complete set, because
Jesus.
there were not a lot of those that were sold. But
Can you imagine being a kid in 1980, unwrapping
I
your
want
action figures?
John
It's
Wilkes
the
Booth
cast from the
action
black
figure.
hole. Oh man, I would commit homicide if I unwrapped that on Christmas morning.
this may come as a shock, but I do have some black hole action.
This is not
figures.
surprising.
Where? Do we have them? Are they in the house?
They are they are stored away someplace, but I think I did get a few, and they weren't anything that I really would have wanted. Because the only thing that was cool that was worthwhile getting would have been the robots, right?
What? Why?
I mean,
Why?
Maximilian looked cool.
Maximilian was pretty.
Okay,
cool.
he was the only interesting looking one.
There are no R2D2, that's for sure.
Well, that's I think what Vincent was supposed to be the
He was supposed to be
R2D2
a
of this movie.
combination of R2D2 and C3PO, I think, because he had all the the comments.
Right, he spoke in fortune cookies.
I
Not
think
that-
what they thought would have made the movie better is because R2D2 didn't really talk. Like, they understood him, but, like, he didn't really talk, so you didn't really know what he was saying. That's what they made Vincent talk. And it's kind of annoying because they're just trying to make it seem better by, like, making him talk and making him seem more sophisticated, but it wasn't very good.
I thought he was an asshole. I'll be honest. I thought Vincent was a giant ass. He constantly belittled the crew. He hyped himself up way too much. I mean, he got into a shooting competition with that robot later in the movie. We'll talk about that. He seemed very selfish and he was just an asshole. He was an alpha male, but he was a robot, so it made no sense at all in terms of
He
the
had
story.
too much personality for a robot.
He liked to speak in fortune cookies. There are old
be having
pilots
some
and there are
technical
bold pilots,
difficulties
but there
over
are very
there.
few old, bold pilots.
Your lucky numbers are.
Yeah, so that's kind of what he came into. So we meet the crew. They're hanging around. They're looking at this thing. I think Dante's Inferno was referenced as
Oh
one of the
yeah, that
things
was
that-
the big. I remember writing that down. I was like, was black holes mentioned in Dante's Inferno? I need to look that up.
Yeah, they're making all these references to how big it is and how imposing it is, and what do they
That's
find?
what she said.
There's a spaceship out there, some big giant spaceship. They do like a little ID on it. I guess they ran a VIN number or something, and they came up and found out that this was the Cygnus, which was a ship. It had Kate's father on it, right? That's one of the first things we found out. So what do? They fly by.
They land, or don't they get, like, pulled into
The end. That's
They get space turbulence, which
That's right.
I don't. Is that a thing?
I
Is
don't
space
know.
turbulence a thing?
I guess so.
There's nothing up there. It's a vacuum.
Then the robot was tethered, but there was no point in the tether because he can fly apparently. And then like they
That was a
have-
bunch of manufactured
They don't
tension
have
that came out of
gravity on the
nowhere.
ship, but somehow in some rooms they do have gravity because they're walking around. But at the same time, they can go up and down. Like
That was my number one
It was
pet
to reduce
peeve.
the budget.
The pet peeve was the gravity.
Yeah, that it didn't make sense. Why do they have, like, gravity in some places and no gravity? Like,
Yeah, that's true.
come on.
That was kind of weird. It was a little bit off-putting. They were floating around certain areas of the ship, and then they were standing around the table like there was, normal gravity. So that was kind of disturbing. So they fly by this Cygnus ship. They take a look at it. They put on the micro beam or whatever it was, and they look at it, and they said, oh, it's dark. And Kate seems to think there's people on it, but, no go. Then they pass by it, and they start getting pulled into the black hole, and they have to come back, and something breaks or something like that, right? And they
Yeah,
go
well-
back towards the Cygnus again, and then what? Because they're gonna land on it.
and then they're like, "Oh, the lights are on. I guess someone's home." And they pull in their driveway, and they're like, "Reception? Why is there a reception on a ship?" And it's like the office because they got the reception desk and they got a little waiting area.
Yeah, it was Pam Beasley.
Yeah, that's right. So the lights come on the ship. It was all dark. Now it's all lit up, and they're like, "Oh, I guess somebody's here." So they land, and they get out.
Of
And-
course, best thing to do in a strange ship is get out and split up.
Because this is a Disney movie, they hop on a tram.
Oh God.
People
Right.
movers. It's the people movers.
Oh my gosh, it's the best ride.
Yeah, so they go. So who goes?
John Wilkes Booth,
Right.
the guy that joins the cult, the only girl,
That's
and the
that's-
guy in
that's-
charge.
Okay.
Harry was like the Harry. was
Everybody
the one-
but
Everybody,
the one
Charlie.
dude.
They
But-
leave Charlie behind.
yeah,
at the
everybody
ship.
but the
that
one who
guy.
seemed kind of okay.
No, he didn't seem. He looked like the like the young one that's like sarcastic, but he's smart enough to get out of trouble. That's his character.
He kind of reminded me of Zachary Quinto.
I would like to say I did kind of enjoy the jackets that they did have in the beginning, like
I don't
that
even remember the
Dan
movie.
had and Charlie had, like the white jackets with like the gold on the
I
side.
think it's like the captain or whatever.
I think
what-
it was like the
those were pretty cool. I like
captain.
yeah, they had the captains
commander
insignias
and-
and stuff. They were kind of like astronaut.
They were the
uniforms.
actual astronauts. Everybody else was just there.
Yeah, so
They were the fake astronauts. They've never been to space.
Captain Dan, Captain Dan, Kate, Harry, and Alex, they
Luxus.
all hop on this little tram, and Vincent, like, I guess, floats out in front of it, and they
Oh,
go to find.
You forgot to mention the Kate's. What is it? What's it called?
Oh, the ESP with the robot, because
Yeah.
that was never explained and never talked about at any amount except for the one bit where they used it
Yeah.
to warn everybody at the end.
When the thing broke, Vincent went to go check it out, and then like Vincent apparently like went in, and then that's why they went in. I think one
Right,
of the reasons why they actually
There was a
decided
tense
to go
scene
in.
before they landed on the Cygnus where something on the Palomino broke during the space turbulence, and Vincent had to go out to try to fix it, and they couldn't communicate with him through normal channels. So we find out, hey, we got a convenient in here. Kate has ESP with the robot. So her eyes get all funky, and something goes on with Vincent's eyes, and they start communicating. Vincent spits out another fortune cookie saying to say that basically he's okay and everything's going to be all right. And then they go back in and they land on the Cygnus. So, yeah, that's important. Apparently, the robot and the Dr. McCrae have ESP. So they go in, they get on the tram,
Yeah.
and who do we meet?
They go in the control tower and they meet with the doctor, the guy, the psychopath
Reinhardt.
dude.
Han,
Reinhardt, yeah. And you
Reinhardt.
find out he's eating everybody else on the ship.
Yes,
And there's no other people.
he didn't
And they're
eat
just a bunch of
everybody.
robots.
I mean, it wasn't all happening at that moment, but yeah, basically.
are we not gonna talk about the robot sex trafficking, or is that for later?
Emma, stop stealing my jokes. It's on my notes, not yours.
We haven't gotten that far yet. I would like to talk about when we first meet Reinhardt. I thought that as I scroll back to the top to figure out who played Reinhardt,
Maximilian.
Maximilian Schell.
Maximilian Schell. I thought he did a pretty good job. To be honest, I thought he did. Maybe he went a little too hard at the beginning with the whole crazy man thing. It was very obvious that was going to be the twist of the movie, is that he's insane and he did something terrible to his crew. But other than that, I thought he did a very good job. You could tell he was kind of,
And
dangerous
then
and
for like
shifty.
Yeah, the next 45 minutes is them just going around the ship and figuring out, hey, these robots don't seem like robots, do they?
Right. So Reinhardt is all crazy. Who else do we meet though?
Maximilian.
Maximilian.
He's the cool looking robot. He sort of looks like the robot from The Incredibles, but he's a cylinder instead of a sphere. But he still has the spinning hands.
metal blades. Probably more important. It's just spinning hands.
He's got
Not
spinning
quite
hands.
as threatening to say he's got spinning hands. He's got like jazz hands or something like that.
General
That's not
Grievous
really.
had spinning hands, and that was pretty threatening.
One thing that I want to say about Reinhardt is that I don't know if you guys noticed, but if you look very, very closely, you can tell that he's wearing makeup. And I'm just gonna say
They all wore makeup.
he has
It was the
he has
80s.
this huge beard going. For a split second when we first saw him, I thought he was like a werewolf or something. He terrified me for a split second. I was just like, wait, hold up. I thought, are we getting into like a whole like different kind of thing? Because this is like, I didn't know there would be werewolves
Thing.
included in this movie.
No, it didn't turn out that there were werewolves, but yeah,
Just cyborgs.
he did look like he
And
had the
cannibalism.
Frankenstein, Dr. Frankenstein look to him. He was like wearing a little bathrobe or something, and just like all kind of loopy. Talking about he shares with the fact that Kate's dad, who was on the ship, is dead. So yeah, that plot point immediately tied up.
And so is everyone else.
Yeah, so
Well, actually, no. They took the
No,
life
he's
pods.
like, oh, they
and they
went on the
dipped.
escape pod and they should be back at Earth. And they're like, they never came back. He's like, oh, okay then. Oh, well. Sorry to hear that.
Reinhardt is an esteemed scientist, which is also important to point out, and he is studying the black hole, which gives us the entire reason this movie exists. Unfortunately.
What was the other doctor's name? Dr. Grant? Is that what you said?
That's
Dr.
Jurassic Park.
That's
Dr.
yeah.
Grant.
Wrong.
You
Doctor.
thinking McGraw?
Are we talking about like the one that was like, I'm gonna stay with him and help him, and then
Oh,
he
you're
ended-
thinking
Durant.
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 You were almost there. You got the rant part right.
Yeah.
Dr. Durant. Yeah, he had the
He
purple
became part of
shoes
the
and
cult.
the shroud. He was all set to join that cult. He was on board. He was like, oh,
He's like, I have
You're
the
awesome.
books.
I have your books. Can you please sign my back? Please.
they're gonna go and get some parts because apparently I don't know, they got like a spaceship aid auto parts store on the.
Their transmission's leaking
Yeah,
or
so
something.
Bro, I wouldn't be surprised if they had a swimming pool and a bowling alley too. That was a big ship
It was a big
for
shit.
just
It was
like
a
a whole
big
bunch
ship.
of dead space.
So Maximilian takes because they bring Charlie up apparently, so that leaving Charlie behind probably not a good idea because his Reinhardt has a robot army apparently. Because if you're on a science research vessel, you need a robot army.
If you're in a Disney
You're
movie,
not gonna make.
you need the extras.
You you need the
You
extras.
can't just have 5 people in a movie.
You're not
Well,
gonna
Toy
get
Story
enough
begs to differ.
money from the movie
Toys-
if
they
you
had
don't
all the
have a
little green
robot
army
army.
men.
It's just not possible.
I think they
guys.
only count as one person.
No. They were Green Army men. There were more than one.
Oh, okay. You say so.
Maximilian, our tough robot with the razor spinning arms, he and Vincent have a moment. There was another biblical reference there. They're throwing David and Goliath out there.
There are a lot of those sprinkled in there. I wonder if that's any kind of foreshadowing.
Maybe,
Mm,
maybe.
I don't know what David and Goliath is, so
It's from
You
the
don't know-
Bible. The Bible.
I never read Bible.
You never read the Bible?
Nope.
I don't know if you want to share that necessarily for people.
I am a Catholic person, but I've never read the Bible.
Okay.
First thing we got to do is stop referring to it as the Bible.
You know Bibble's the little the little flying thing from the Fairytopia Barbie.
Okay, we're getting
Fairytopia.
off topic, guys.
Just
He's
a little bit.
flying thing.
All right, let's not talk about
He's
this
a
movie.
meme now.
Oh, God.
Okay, so Lieutenant Charlie, Captain Dan, Vincent, and Maximilian go looking for parts.
At the
I
auto
don't remember this
store.
part.
Harry decides he's just gonna go wander off because whatever.
I want to go look at their crops.
Exactly.
See what kind
So-
of corn they're
Plants.
growing.
Oh, God, the plants.
Now, yeah, and so they go in, and I guess actually Captain Dan he starts wandering off on his own too, and they start encountering all these weird things.
Doesn't they put Vincent in how I saw it is they put him in like a robot daycare.
They really did.
That was when they
They're
went to
like,
dinner.
go make friends.
It's too early.
They sent him with like the little babysitter, and they went to the robot arcade. That was fun.
That's true. Yes. So I mean, can we talk about that robot arcade? I mean, what was the deal with that? I mean, why do you build an arcade for robots to play in?
Because they're not actually robots.
Well, no, the robots that we saw shooting in the arcade were robots.
Oh, they were.
So
Yeah, what do you do? Okay,
because
so
when they shot 'em, they
not
had
to
electric
jump too
wires
far
running
ahead,
everywhere.
but at the end of the movie, Reinhardt asks the crew to protect him from Maximilian. Is he afraid of the robots? I know there was like a whole bunch of
Why
robot
was he
consciousness
against
stuff.
Maximilian and then he and Maximilian sort of became one in the end? I know I'm jumping ahead. Okay, we'll get back.
Just a
We'll get
little
back
bit.
to. We'll get back to.
We'll burn that bridge when we get to it.
Yeah, we'll get back to that piece. Anyway, so they go off wandering in their own directions there. And I thought actually this was pretty interesting. They went in and they, Dan saw where like the crew was sleeping. He picked up, there was like a photograph or something of one of the crew members.
This old photograph.
and there was, there
This is
was
a Nickelback podcast.
and then Harry finds the greenhouse. Now I always thought to myself when I was watching the Star Wars movies that on the Star Destroyers, you never saw where the stormtroopers. You knew they had to sleep somewhere. You figured there had to be something besides long hallways with no railings into giant abysses on these ships, but you never saw any of that.
Yeah, this is true. I like the world building they did here. I also want to point out, I watched the trailer right before we started taping this, and the trailer makes it look like it's shot exactly in the same way as the Death Star sequence from Star Wars A New Hope is filmed too. It's like them sneaking around and them like walking past like squads of troopers and stuff. It's like the same thing, which I thought was really interesting and definitely a total ripoff. So George Lucas can copyright that anytime he wants.
Yeah, well,
Well, it's a little late for
they
that
were
now.
trying to push this as the next Star Wars, so. But you never saw that like in Star Wars. I mean, you figured they had to have like a mess hall somewhere, or like a Starbucks, or like a duty free shop with like a Brookstone
Starbucks,
somewhere.
get it? 'Cause they're in
but you never
space.
saw that.
You do see
anywhere.
this in the Lego Death Star. If you build it, they have a greenhouse.
Do they?
I'm
We should get
Did
the Lego
anyone else
Death.
feel like the Cygnus itself was kind of like one of the rides at Epcot that like had a very short wait?
Spaceship Earth? Are you talking about Spaceship Earth?
Maybe. I don't know. I mean, like the greenhouse ride and stuff like that, where you got
There's
the
a
boats and
greenhouse
stuff,
ride?
Like they had a greenhouse ride. Yeah, the land.
Is the one we didn't get on? It's like the boat one that's like educational, and everybody's like, "Ugh, why would we go on that?"
Yes, that's the
I
one.
wanted to go on it.
It was like it wasn't working when we went too.
So I mean,
It was the one by
It
Soren.
was no carousel of progress, let me tell you.
no, it was not.
Somebody died on Carousel
So-
of Progress, but that's
They-
You're not the
Topic.
point.
This is about the black hole, not the carousel of progress, as much as I wished it was
It
not
is
the
Disney,
carousel of
though.
progress.
All right, so we
They
go
should have given
on.
it a ride. It would have been
They're
a
all
cool
doing
ride.
side quests.
They're all doing little side quests and stuff like that. They meet back up on the Palomino,
and they're
then
like, huh,
they
there's some weird
decide-
shit going on here, huh?
time to go to dinner.
Because they
Right?
said they'll have dinner with the weird guy.
Yeah, exactly. So, and of course, the weird
There's
guy's
a
got
formal
like
dining room on ship.
Exactly, a formal dining room. What
There's a
was up with that?
chandelier.
There's like a hanging chandelier. As
You
far
There's
as
a
brought
the-
the fine
fireplace.
china.
Did you see the fireplace in the back?
Yeah, it looked like a Victorian like house or something like that. It was bizarre, but I mean, they all sit down to eat, and that's when they. I guess the probe ship comes in at this point in time because Reinhardt sent a probe ship out to look at the black hole, and this is where he states his big mission statement. We're gonna go into the black hole and through the black hole and whatever's on the other side of the black hole, which of course, if anybody that studies physics would know is you really don't go on the other side of the black hole. You don't escape it because
It's a black hole.
exactly. But that's besides the point. So they have the dinner. Reinhardt leaves to go meet the probe ship, and they all start kibitzing about.
They're like, man, this guy is crazy. Maybe we should leave. And then wasn't Harry like, maybe we should convince him to leave with us, and we can take this ship.
Right, Harry is
Oh,
all
yeah,
like,
he wants a mutiny.
let's mutiny. Let's bring him home. I think he's like expecting some sort of reward or something. I don't know.
He's like, there's a big bounty on this guy, let's get it.
I'll point out here that Reinhardt has since ditched the lab
They're
coat.
doing this
he's
in
all,
front of him.
He's all in red now.
Oh, yeah.
So he's
It's not like it's a total
he looks like
giveaway.
a Maximilian's twin. It's like everybody in this movie, they all wore like monochromatic clothes. Like everybody, like the shirt and the pants were the exact same color for everybody in this movie. I don't know if anybody noticed that, but it kind of bothered me after a while.
I honestly blocked out this movie. I don't remember anything.
So while they're at dinner, Vincent, as somebody said, was at robot daycare. He's in the shooting range, like
My name...
Going
wait.
up against-
Vincent's the
Vincent's a
name.
star.
Shooting is my game. Try me.
there you go. So they run into Bob. You know,
Oh, the
that's
Southern
Bob.
Vincent. He was my favorite character.
Bob was like the iPhone 1 compared to the iPhone 10 is when you're comparing Bob and Vincent, basically.
And this is where the idea of robot sex trafficking comes in.
Okay.
Because we find out Bob has been being bullied by the other robots. He's like, you don't want to know what they do to me. And he looks like he's been like trashed. He looks really trash. Like he just looks like he's got wires exposed.
Way too much
he's
tequila.
Dented. He looks like he's hungover, but he's not because he's a robot. And so he's like, you don't want to know what they do to me. And it's sort of just like, is there robot sex trafficking going on the ship?
Am I a
thought
failure as a
it was
parent
interesting
that
they
you
beat him up
people
after.
are going to that place right away? What are you guys watching when I'm not around?
The news.
Okay.
Oh.
God.
Great. Okay, cut this out. This is blooper time, everybody. Welcome to Comedy Hour. Okay, let's get back in shape, everyone. Back
Okay.
to the black hole. Okay.
All right.
Wow.
Emma's cracking the whip here.
She was the one that brought it up first.
So we're at
robot daycare.
Vincent runs into Star, who is apparently the number 2 behind Maximilian.
He's the big
And
man
he's
with
like
the
the
big
best
iron on his
shooter.
He's a bit of an arrogant ass as well, wasn't he? It's
Yeah.
like
We're
cursing
arrogant ass
now.
meets arrogant ass, I guess, if Colin felt that way. He like bullies Bob into like playing this game, and Bob loses, and then Vincent like cracks him or something like that. And
Vincent
then
murders him.
Suddenly, Bob is like, "All right, let me spill the beans here."
Wait, didn't Vincent he beat him in the game and then he just sort of like his circuits fried because he lost.
Well, I
He's
think
like, "Oh, you're a sore loser."
Vincent shot and one of his bolts deflected off and hit Star in the chest. He basically killed him,
Where'd the babysitters
which
go?
was kind of, which is, you know,
Yeah, where
it's
are the
kind of-
babysitters
It's kind
in
of
this
dark for a Disney
scenario?
movie.
They
I mean,
killed
forget
a
Bambi's
child.
mom for a second here, but killing an unnamed robot on the Death Star, not okay. Not in Disney's
Okay,
book.
we brushed over a part where Harry was in the greenhouse. We didn't really get into this part. And he saw one of the robots. And then he saw the robot was limping. He's like, huh, robots don't do that, do they?
Well, he is an investigative journalist.
Yeah.
Even
I
though
like
he
how
may
the
not
ro-
be the most liked action figure, he did serve a purpose there.
And then at dinner, he's like, man, this guy's crazy. You know, the robots are weird because I found this one that was limping.
Well, yeah, and Dan shared he saw a robot funeral, which was also kind of strange.
And
It
the
sort of looked like a
greenhouse
cult.
also had too much food, and the robot disappeared like Batman.
Right. So we get all this in here, and then Bob spills the beans to Vincent. Yeah, Reinhardt is crazy. He killed the crew, and well, he didn't really
kill
them.
them.
He zombified them,
Cyborg
and that's what's
him.
walking around under these metal face shields. That's what's left of the crew, and he did kill Kate's father, so no reunion there.
Didn't like Kate's father try to start a mutiny, and he was like, "Yeah,
exactly. Yeah,
Yeah, that's not gonna
the
happen.
story was shared. So Vincent's like, "Oh my god!"
no." And then he uses
Not British
his-
enough.
Except he used some sort of fortune cookie saying. I'm
Wait,
sure.
I think I have one written down. Nose to nose of the trash compactor, you cool it. Oh, that's probably not the right one.
What was it? What was the thing he said? It was like, if a pint can't handle a quart, if it's holding the pint, it's doing the best it can, right? One of the
What?
many
Oh
things that he
God,
said.
Vincent was on so much
So
cocaine.
they all go back. All right. So Kate and Dr. Durant stay because Dr. Durant is like totally
infatuated with this man.
lapdog of Reinhardt now, and the rest of them are back on the Palomino, and Vincent and Bob spill the beans, and Dan's like, "Well, I guess we got to get out of here. We got to save these people." Does everybody remember that?
Yeah, that
gotta
went.
save
Oh, it's
the
a hell in a
cyborg.
handbasket in a hurry.
He's like, "We got to save the rest of this crew," and Bob's like, "No, death is their only release." And that's when like,
That's what
we're like,
that's what Thumper said to Bambi after his mom died. No, don't tell me you didn't get that on tape.
No.
Okay, good.
because that's the most Disney thing that was said in this movie.
Death is the
comes.
only
Death
release.
is their only release. Which
Are
is
they
kinda like
wrong
the people
though?
watching
Are
the
they
movie.
wrong though? Look
They
at
all
me and tell
gotta
me
go
they're not
to
wrong.
Farm upstate. They're gone. They're
So
they're
that's
a
where we
lost
find out.
cause.
And so they're like, all right, we gotta get everybody out of here. So they're like, let's bring back Kate. Let's bring back Durant. Kate's like, Durant doesn't want to go. He really likes this guy. So then
And
they
then
I
doesn't
don't know
Durant
wh-
try to get her out?
Yeah, they didn't
No,
say
They
like,
both try
right
to
away
leave.
why they wanted him back. And then he's like, now let's tell her why we want them back. Tell them the fact that they're surrounded by zombies. And that's when the
They're
movie
like, oh,
totally
maybe we
goes,
should go.
like nuts, because what happens after Kate gets told exactly what's going on?
And then
The whole thing that bugged me, I
Alright.
think, with that part is they were like, "Oh, we know what you're doing. We're gonna leave, though," and like they couldn't have just left.
They couldn't have been like,
silently.
oh, I gotta go to the bathroom. We gotta
Yeah.
go together for some reason though. Don't ask why, but we gotta go to the bathroom and then walk back to the ship and left. At this point, were they still entertaining the idea of kicking Reinhardt off his own ship, or are they giving that up in
Well, no, it's like Harry's thing. Was like Harry was like, when they were at dinner, it's like, oh, let's take over. And then once he finds out that he's zombified the crew, he's like, I don't want to wind up like them. Let's get out of here. So they tell Kate, and Kate tells Durant, and what does Durant do?
He spills the beans.
He's like, "I'll take your books and share them with the world. Come on, Kate, we're going." And then Maximilian comes up, and
Well, what does he do first?
no. What happens
I wanna
is they
say,
lift
I
off the mask of one of the guys,
Yes.
and then
yeah,
I don't know why
that
they
was
do that. 'cause
terrifying.
Then they signal to him that they know what's going on. So it's like, why would you do that if you can just escape? And they're acting like they're geniuses, but they're really not in the scenario.
They
Yes.
couldn't have done it with like the guy behind the desk or something, like someone like out of Reinhardt's line of sight. They had to do it with the man sitting right in front of Reinhardt. Like, I wonder what happens if I
And
do
then
this.
they left the mask off. Like if you just take a peek
I forgot they put it back on.
you just take a peek. You don't have to take the mask all the way off. You just take a peek under. Like, oh, you're a person. All right, we gotta go. See you later. We'll call you if we need help.
The brave Dr. Durant then tries to get Kate off, and
Maximilian.
Maximilian comes in with his spinning blades, and what does Durant do? He
Off-screen death.
uses his scientific knowledge to defend himself with
A book.
a notebook. Right. So what happens when a notebook meets a bunch of spinning blades?
We
And
meet
obviously
Crumble
Notebook
stops
wins,
it and
right?
he saves the day.
Yeah, pretty much confetti. So Durant gets
Confetti with
killed.
It's very
I mean,
Off
it
screen, of
wasn't-
course.
Could have been more graphic than it was, but it's still pretty disturbing for a PG movie. And then
I've seen worse.
Reinhardt totally loses it, and that's when he starts saying, "Protect me from Maximilian."
I still don't understand that.
Well, that was actually an ad-lib line.
Why?
A what?
An ad-libbed line.
That changes,
It wasn't
like-
in the script. He did it, I guess, to make himself seem crazier.
But
Okay.
I guess I see it.
Is this some sort of Blade Runner stuff with the rights of robots and self-control and stuff, or is this
Please don't
the,
get
the
into other
coexistence
cinematic
between humans and
I
universes.
don't
robots?
think they went that deep with this. That's kind of a
mean-
stretch to say they would have.
Yeah, that's fair.
where are we at the movie right now?
Well, back to it. The movie. Next.
We were talking about the movie.
I know. But next on.
She's just trying to speed us along.
Oh, okay.
Next,
Okay, so Durant is dead.
right?
Yeah.
And then next
And then-
on we have.
Then,
And then
doesn't Kate get stuck or something?
she gets captured
she gets captured.
and
and
is
then they wrap
almost
her with
zombified.
a tinfoil hat. And then they put her in the microwave area.
Yeah,
But
it's
But you're never supposed to microwave aluminum
it's
foils.
the old popcorn, from Chicken
It's like
Little.
Jiffy Pop, yes.
Yeah, that one.
They wrapped it because apparently when you convert them into zombies, you have to put them
Cyborgs.
into this thing that
Makes
I
them
don't know.
popcorn.
apparently, I don't know, it's like a little thing that just spins around.
You gotta put it on
And
the popcorn
then-
setting. Listen, make sure you hear
You
the
gotta listen
popping.
Time
Because
between
you don't want to burn her,
1 to
but
2
you just want
seconds
to hear
between
her.
pops.
You want to hear all her brain nerves fry.
Yes.
I-
1 to 2 seconds between
Wow.
nerves frying, and then you take it out.
Okay.
Any more time, and then you're gonna burn it. And you don't want to do that.
Because then the smell is just never gonna go away.
Yeah, no, you can't get rid of burnt popcorn.
After the whole popcorn scene, then we have.
Wait, you're missing a whole lot.
Yeah.
Calm down.
Yeah,
So what the Holland guy goes and he goes to go save Kate, right? And then
he goes with
Kaiser-
Vincent and
and then-
Bob
yeah,
because
Vincent
Bob's
Bob.
a lot of help.
Yeah, Bob is my favorite character. I don't know what to say.
Bob redeemed this movie.
And then.
No, and then Harry and the Charlie they went to go.
They stay.
They went out though to go do something.
No, they
They
waited.
stay.
No, they went to go fight people, didn't they?
Not
No,
until
they
not
stay.
initially. Initially,
Initially,
said,
they
"You
were
stay
they were
here."
vibing and just sort of
they
doing
No,
each other's
Harry was
hair and
trying
making
to
friendship
leave.
bracelets in the ship, and
And
then
Harry was trying to leave. He was like, let's just.
yeah,
go,
but that was
Charlie.
later. That was after
Dan
they
does
saved
his whole hero
McGraw.
moment where he grabs.
And
Kate
then apparently
destroys
there's a
all the
love,
robots
there's
and
a
everything.
relationship
Right,
in this that we
right.
never knew was really
Like
going
the
on until they
stereotypical
kissed.
stuff.
Did they kiss?
No,
know.
he that's right. Emma's right. They burst in. Dan bursts in. He blows up the zombie making machine. He pulls Kate out. Kate's okay, even though she got a little bit of zapping, I suppose. We get right into that, and they wipe out the rest of the robots that were there, and then they start making their way back towards the ship.
I just want to say, I felt the action scenes with the robots were very lackluster. I felt they were exceptionally boring.
I don't really remember.
They
the
were
movie.
garbage. The lasers didn't look like they were hitting the robots
Yeah.
in the same spots that the spark things were going off, so it was just a disjointed mess.
It was just they weren't even really competition. You just had to hit them. They weren't. It didn't even seem like they were trying to They weren't fighting back or anything. It was just,
I like some real death like they do in Star Wars with the dead stormtroopers. I don't like this whole, oh, it's a robot. No. Lives must be
Wrong.
lost.
Okay.
We do lose lives.
Our
yes,
own.
we do, because when they start heading back, Kate, Dan, and the robots, they get cornered, and Charlie says to Harry, "Hey, we gotta go rescue him." And Harry feigns a broken leg.
Oh, yeah,
which,
he
makes
I've
no
hurt
sense.
myself.
he
Self,
eats
even
shit
though
and then
it
it's
does.
like, oh no, my leg! He's
My
like a
leg is
soccer player.
broken.
Oh!
Charlie
What do
being
we
the
do?
idiot he is,
Go,
he's
let
like, all right, go
that
back
man."
on the ship, dude. And then Harry, while Charlie's out saving people, Harry goes, and he goes, you know what, I'm going to leave them. And he pulls the ship out of the docking station. He starts trying to fly away.
Because of
Hey,
all
he's
the
not
a
people on the
pilot.
Torpedo crew,
He's like a
who
piece
was the
of
most
burnt popcorn.
qualified or least qualified to fly that ship? It was Harry,
The
reporter.
investigative journalist.
Yes. And so he goes, he Charlie saves Dan and Kate
Kate,
and the
yeah.
robot. He wipes them out, and then Harry takes off.
And then Reinhardt shoots him down, so it was sort of pointless.
Yep. So that's 2 down from the Palomino crew. We've lost Durant, we've lost Booth, and we've lost the Palomino.
But we did gain
Bob.
Bob.
Bob, we got Bob. yes.
Honestly,
Bob
seems like a
carries
fair
the movie.
trade to me.
So they're like, well, we're gonna have to either take over Reinhardt, but then somebody comes up, or Vincent says, I think. 'Cause
He's
Dan
gonna
says,
go
"Vincent,
into the
you're a
black
genius
hole."
because the probe, right?
Oh yeah, the probe ship. I
Let's-
forgot that was there.
Let's go to the probe ship.
Oh yeah, didn't they do the whole bearing the lead thing where they were making the audience guess what they were talking about? They were like, "Oh, Vincent, you're a genius," and then they like waited like 30 seconds before like, "Oh yeah, take the probe ship."
Right.
And we're just sort of waiting there in suspense, like, ugh.
Yeah, and this is kind of where I guess the budget or the lack of
They ran out of budget.
stuff to show. Well, no, I wouldn't say that
No,
because
no,
there's a
yeah.
couple of good scenes here, but
Not
the
good
one
scenes,
scene,
but scenes.
but the like
that
some
cost
of the
money.
setting and stuff like that look kind of flimsy at this
Let's
point.
just
But it
call
did
them
have
scenes that
the
cost
meteor shower,
Ah, yes.
which was one of the selling points of the movie. One of the big trailer scenes is when the giant meteor was rolling through the things. When I think-
Indiana Jones.
I think Mom said, "Oh, come on," because she was finding it kind of incredulous as they were doing that. And then they wind up in the greenhouse, and the greenhouse like starts losing air because the meteor scrapes that, and they're all running towards the ship.
Okay.
And meanwhile, as they get closer to the black hole, the thing starts falling apart. Right?
So I wrote in my notes, apparently when Reinhardt was doing calculations for the black hole, his calculations included the quadratic formula. Now don't get me wrong,
You saw the quadratic formula.
I remember it. But the quadratic formula is a parabola, right?
Yeah, I don't see it being very useful here.
No,
I don't know what he's
it's like
factoring.
a two-dimensional thing.
Yeah, I don't know what he could be factoring, but I sure as hell don't think it's anything to do with the black hole. Maybe he was taking a math test while he was doing this. He was like,
He was giving his driver's license. Apparently, you need to know the quadratic formula when you're getting a space driver's license. You know?
Right.
In order to, like, he hasn't gotten it yet.
he was
I
working
guess
on his
not.
PhD in elementary school math and was like,
Because he wasn't as brilliant as he thought he was. Because things
And
really
that's
start
why he ended up
falling
in
apart.
hell.
ah,
He
yes.
didn't know that the quadratic formula did not apply to black holes.
Add on about this whole ship going down thing. The thing is that really got me annoyed about it is that when you think about it, like, first off, the ship, its outsides, it looked like it was made out of sheeting, which obviously wouldn't be able
Baking
to.
sheets?
No, not baking.
Look like parchment
sheets, like-
paper.
Yeah. So it's
It
like,
did.
how are you gonna be able to breathe? And then the sheets just leave, and then you're just like, well, it didn't really help before because it wasn't even that big of a deal that they left. But at the same time, the ship is breaking down, and they're not even really trying it.
So basically, the ship is breaking, and they're running for the probe ship. And then, like, a whole bunch of robots come and fight them.
including Maximilian.
And then Maximilian comes, yeah, and then
And
doesn't kill
Maximilian
Bob.
pops out
He
as
kills Bob.
they're getting to the
Yeah, like a Jack in the Box.
Of course,
He's
you
like,
know, you
"Aha,
killed the best
here."
character. Bob's dead now, and they sort of just leave his body
well,
there
he's
to
not
die.
dead yet.
He's
People-
well,
they-
he gets
they-
shot,
They
And
shot
then-
him down, and then they have Vincent and Maximilian go at it.
and then but they just
Oh
leave him
yeah,
there.
Vincent and Maximilian went at it. Let me
Oh
tell
my.
you about Vincent and Maximilian going at it.
Well,
Well,
they
they
fought
fought.
each other.
Yeah.
I was thinking of another F word, Dad.
Whoa.
Whoa, we can cut that
Whoa.
in post.
PG, say PG-13, everybody.
So
I didn't say it.
Maximilian's using his razor blade things, and Vincent's like poking his head in his shell like like a turtle, and like ramming up against them, and like then Maximilian uses like this electrolysis thing, and Vincent uses like a carbide tipped drill bit to like zap into Maximilian's core, and like, you know, basically sort of the same thing that Maximilian did to Durant, right?
Are we trying to look at a parallel here? Because I don't think that was intentional.
Okay.
I don't think any kind of symbolism was
And
intentional.
I think Maximilian made some very strange noises as he was dying. Didn't he like scream a little bit?
Yeah, he was screaming, which is weird for a robot. But then he didn't die.
Well, well,
didn't.
We'll figure that out as we get into it. But meanwhile, all this is going on. They're trying to get to the probe ship. Reinhardt gets like crushed by a giant monitor as his ship
Can I
starts
point
breaking
out-
a point because I guess he didn't use those IKEA things to lock it into place.
Yeah.
In his command tower, he does have railings on his
Yes.
what's it called, the platforms. But
Yes.
this in Star Wars, you never really saw people fall off platforms except for like Han Solo. But in this one, people fell off more platforms than they did in Star Wars,
Yeah,
and
they
they had
flipped
the railings.
over railings.
Yeah, they were worried. They were right. They would be leaning all day, and that's part of the problem. They're gonna flip over the railings.
So they flipped over the railings. So Reinhardt's dead. His last words are
And then,
basically
Help
calling
me.
to his
Robot army
robots to help him, and nobody came.
Because they're all cyborgs.
Exactly.
and have no free will.
And all they're
Oh, wait.
programmed to do is computer.
Robots set
Something like
traffic.
Exactly. So we learned an important lesson about the value of human life and
Robot sex
camaraderie and-
trafficking?
no.
And if you're stuck on a spaceship, do not create a robot army.
Well, yeah.
Well, wait.
Oh,
And
let's
expect
get
them to
back
sink.
into it. So they get on their probe ship, but when they're getting on it, do they go through space? Is that what happened? Is what that red atmosphere was?
Yeah, I couldn't quite because he's.
I
one
think
of them
they
started
went through
floating away. It
space.
looked like that you could see stars and stuff. So how did they breathe? We don't know.
They got in the probe ship, and
They-
then they're like, "Well, looks like we have to go into the black hole."
Yeah, it's been programmed to go through the black hole, and then
We go through the
go
black
to
hole.
the ending. And what an ending this was!
I don't know, man.
Hell.
What the hell?
Quite literally.
That's exactly what went on. Because we
We
go into the
find,
black hole. There's like a big, strange focus. Like it
On a
goes into slow
volcano.
motion for a minute.
It's like a Mustafar.
And then there's this thing
It looked like
where,
Mustafar, right?
where like
It looked like Mustafar, yes, but essentially what they do is they travel through heaven and hell first.
and
We
then they go
meet
to heaven.
Reinhardt again, except he's
And
dead.
now, but
And
no,
trapped
he's in
inside.
Maximilian's
They
shell.
combine together. Their two
Exactly.
bodies combine as
And then
one,
you see
it's
all the
just
little
that.
robots in like a cult line, sort of dancing.
That's a conga line.
It's a conga line. in
Why
hell.
did they go to hell? They didn't deserve to.
They conga line to
They
the
were
bottom of hell.
sacrifices.
Well, we don't know if it was necessarily the robots. We just saw cloaked figures walking around
No, you could see their
the
faces
fire pits
if you
of
looked
what
closer.
appeared to be hell, with Maximilian and Reinhardt
They were having a
inside
rave down
Maximilian
there.
with his eyes looking.
They're
through
having
the
a great
thing.
old time.
It was like
So-
an outdoor concert.
It was like Burning Man, quite literally.
So it was way off the rails by this point. We
Oh,
had
yeah.
no idea what was going on. And
Welcome to the Twilight
yeah, so
Zone.
it's essentially when you go into something that light can't escape, it's apparently
It's hell.
it's hell.
Yeah.
And then
Very bright though.
the music changes, and we get a glass corridor in the middle of hell.
Glass corridor. Did we
I
get that?
remember the glass corridor. Is
It's
there
like-
is there
it's like
something
the
in the
glass
Bible about
elevator
corridor?
from
glass
Charlie and the
corridors to
Chocolate
go into heaven?
Factory?
And then
Shooting
they
up out of the
see
factory.
what do we see? We see an angel.
Did we see an angel?
Do we
Oh, I
really see?
remember
I don't
that
remember.
A little.
Did I repress that in my memory?
I
You may
repressed the
have.
entire movie.
We
I
did.
remember
See,
just
we
being
saw an
so
angel.
done with the movie that I just forgot everything.
If he says he
It's
saw an
just
angel,
A little bit of a blur.
I thought they sort of just like kept going through space like nothing happened.
I do remember the angel.
Well, they
thing,
did.
just
They
forgot.
got out, and then all of a sudden they were on the other side, and there was no black hole anywhere. It was just
Spooky.
gone.
Can I say that bugged me? They just went they went through this whole traumatic experience. They lost their ship and they lost two of their people, and they just keep. All right, guys, what's the next stop? What were they even doing in space?
they were looking for habitable planets.
Well, let's hope they found one because they were in a probe ship, but I didn't see them pack too many TV dinners in that thing.
Not enough snacks.
No, there was no granola bars. I didn't see a whole lot of water. So
They didn't pack enough. Maybe they like packed enough for like food wise, maybe, but the
They
same
can eat
time,
Vincent
you stress
or
it.
Bob.
Okay.
So that was it. Cutscene. End of movie.
Yay.
Can I say the two biggest words? Because I wrote in different font. I wrote in different sizes on my notes. And the two biggest words. The first one is cult, and I put a square around it, because that was a important thing. Because they sent off the dead bodies into a black hole, which is weird. And then metaphors.
What were the metaphors that you saw?
They spoke in metaphors the entire time.
Oh,
you know,
yeah.
remember like Vincent would say something in metaphor, and Charlie would go, "Vincent, you're speaking in riddles. Stop it!" And then he'd say something 5 minutes later and be like, it'd be some sort of metaphor.
Yes, Vincent. did have quite a few. I wouldn't say metaphors, but there were certainly fortune cookie expressions coming out of him.
Turn the phrases. I
Yeah,
don't know.
turning the phrases.
It
So-
was
That's basically it. What would be our favorite scene of this movie?
I don't have a favorite scene, but I have like a favorite thing about the movie, and it's not very. I don't think it's a very strong thing, but it's like how I liked how like they turned the whole crew into like people like
Zombies.
yeah, they turned the whole crew into zombies because that was kind of cool. I liked that, and then I also liked the makeup effects with the crew.
I think Jeff Bezos is working on something like that right now
oh, don't say that.
to create, workers.
Uh,
That was really,
I
really
think
cool.
my favorite scene was when they were on the tram. Because who doesn't love a good people mover ride?
Amazing.
I mean, that's the only thing I really understood too.
People Mover is the best ride.
It
in
made
the
logical
entire
sense
world.
that they had a tram on the ship. That's the only thing that made sense to me.
I did like Reinhardt's line about "Save me from Maximilian" because it felt so out of place. It made me laugh hysterically when we saw it.
What about impossible is in a dictionary of fools?
Oh God. Oh wait, I have another one. Ugh. Let me read this here for you. I'm sorry I blew my stack, which was, I think it was, who said it?
Oh,
It was the young guy.
Charlie, yeah.
Charlie, he said at the beginning.
I'm sorry I blew my stack, Holland. He was talking to Holland? I think he was talking to
Yeah, I
Holland.
was talking to Dan Holland because he was like being protective of Vincent because they were afraid Vincent was going to float off into space or something.
Even though he has...
I thought
Could
that-
fly.
Yeah, so like putting him on a tether was sort of just stupid.
I thought the meteor scene was pretty cool back in the day. It doesn't. The whole thing really doesn't hold up quite as well.
No.
You get any favorite characters? I know that.
Bob.
But you like Bob, huh?
I thought Reinhardt was, I mean, he wasn't very deep. There wasn't a whole lot of depth to him, but I thought that the character himself was played well.
I liked Maximilian.
I liked Charlie and Dan because they seemed the most sane out of everybody.
Did
Yeah,
they
they were
though?
all kind of.
They were the ones that are like, let's go explore.
Well,
The,
maybe Kate. Kate was also.
the dog in the
Well,
house
she
that's
was
on fire,
kinda-
this
she
is
was
fine.
stupid.
That was
She
the
was.
entirety of the crew.
Dan was kind of a. I don't know. He was kind of one note. Kind of a
I must
Kinda
save
dull.
everybody.
Mr. Call him off, Reinhardt. Kind of a dull guy, but whatever. Would anybody recommend this movie?
God, no.
Nope.
I would.
I was about to say
Just
something,
to
but
just
it's
to
really
be that guy. I thought that yeah, it's an old movie, so it really doesn't hold up all that well, but for its time it was interesting. And it's not like everybody has a whole lot to do right now with this whole quarantine thing going on.
If you're in a
like a quarantine kind of thing, like if you're like really on the edge of losing your sanity and you're just about there, that's what you do. You have to watch The Black Hole.
Okay.
That's your mission for the
I was
day.
gonna say, if you're already in a low spot in your life, I mean, this really can't. It can bring you lower, but if you're at the lowest point, then you might as well watch it because you can't go any lower at that point. Right.
Wow. Well, that's a ringing endorsement there, Kate. I think they'll put that on the blurbs on the advertisements going forward.
It's weird, but it had a little bit of charm.
I bet you it'd be a really good reboot
How would you
if they
reboot this
tried
movie?
rebooting it.
That'd be my question. If you were gonna make this movie today, how would you do it?
A bigger budget.
A slower burn, I think.
Yeah, maybe
the
hide the
twist.
fact that he's a bad guy a little bit more. Like,
I
make
mean,
him
it's kinda
seem a
obvious
little
'cause
more
there's
sane
nobody
in
on the crew,
beginning
but-
versus I'm an insane guy.
No.
No, there's
I might deal more with the black hole and less with that. It really depends on what kind of movie you're trying to make, I think.
because they were dealing with a scientific problem and then a humanoid problem.
Well,
Yeah.
let's face it. If they were going to address it as a scientific problem with the black hole, you really couldn't make the black hole at all because nothing science-wise really made any sense in this movie.
No,
because the
but
black hole is definitely not what we saw.
they were trying to use two different problems, and I think that if they focused on the human one and they really developed that story, it would have been really good.
Yeah,
I
well,
think they just needed to drop the whole black hole thing in general.
just
like, It just
What was the
doesn't make
purpose of the
sense.
black? Like, I understood he's like,
Exactly.
I'm going to study black holes, but that was like the only part where the black hole really played any significance in this.
I mean, minus the ending.
The ending was
and
trash.
the entirety of the the tension in the movie.
That's one thing the creators admitted is that they really didn't have an ending for this movie. So that's kind of like why you got what you got.
So does this mean we're gonna have a black hole part 2?
No,
They probably had some sort of brownies before
it wasn't
they finished
really
the ending.
wasn't really a great hit. They were hoping for a lot of merchandising. I mean, you got to remember, this was originally written as a disaster movie called Space Station One, like back in 1974.
That would have been cooler.
And there was a lot of disaster movies released around that time.
Twister.
But the script never went anywhere. So when Star Wars came out, Disney dusted this thing off and retooled it so that they could try to get some of the cash. And you got to remember, this Disney in 1979 was not the Disney we have today. It was much different time then. They were releasing like bad sequels to Escape to Witch Mountain and the Apple Dumpling Gang, and they were still clinging to the Herbie franchise and stuff like that. There wasn't a lot in the animation. They had just gotten a new CEO, Ron Miller, who is Walt Disney's son-in-law. So this was before Eisner and all those guys came in and revamped the brand. So this was really the first chance that they got.
That's why they got away with death is their only escape. I want them to put that in front on like Magic Kingdom, like on the thing as you walk in.
No. Here's what you do.
Happiest place on earth, death is the only escape.
No. You know how you have that sign when you drive in?
Yeah.
When you leave, it says welcome or like thank you for visiting. That's where they should put it.
Oh yeah, death is the only
Only
That is
escape.
your only escape from Disney World.
Oh my! And on that note, I think we're gonna call it a cast here, folks.
Bye. Death is your only escape. Bye bye.
Bye.
So that concludes our very first episode of Dad Made Me Watch It. If you would like to revisit The Black Hole or check it out for the very first time, you can find it streaming on Disney+. On our next episode, we'll jump ahead to 1984 and take a look at The Last Starfighter. Thanks for listening.